So I'm excited to have Shanti. Seeing her today exactly or almost 10 years for sure. And it's great to have her. She is a product leader at Discover Finance. If you're familiar with Discover Cards, Discover Credit Card, Discover Banking, she works over there. And it's great to have her. So that's my introduction. Over to you, Shanti, because there's a lot to unwrap. Um, the first thing I want to dive with you on is if you can give a quick snippet. Who are you? What you've been doing for the last few months, a few years, and then we'll dive into, early stages of your career and take it from there.
Definitely. Thank you so much for having me. And yeah, I'm so excited to see you after 10 years. Yeah, it is one of the friendships that I kept for a really long time. And it's very difficult in these days to stay in touch, especially, if you have a family and work life and all of that. So appreciate the mutual commitment towards this friendship. So thank you so much for that. Excited to be here. And yeah, like you lightly touched, I started my career with as a software developer. So I did my bachelor's and master's in computer science. I started off as a developer, and while I was working as a developer, I was able to tap into one of my strengths, which is like looking at the big picture and understanding product from end to end. And that's actually what led me to do the UX design as well, because I wanted to understand every aspect that goes into making a product. Um, and then that's how I met you, um, got into design, and then eventually I moved into product management, which is kind of like the core objective of mine is bringing products to life. So today I head product delivery for Discover. I work in open banking space. I don't know if you're familiar with it. So open banking is basically we own a B2B platform that enables consumer permission data sharing. So you're probably using open banking, but you just don't know that
Yeah.
it's open banking. Like to give a very basic example, if you're using any of your apps like your Robinhood, Venmo, all those, so they need customers' financial data to
Mhm.
enable those use cases for the customer. So enabling an API-based secure transaction or transmission of data between the financial institutions like the banks and the third-party apps is what open banking is all about. So giving control to the customer over their own data to use it in whatever they want.
No, this is super cool. So I think there are some things I would call you someone as product unicorn, and I will tell you why. Because you have a degree in computer science, you were a software
Mhm.
engineer, you went into design, you did that, and now you're a full-on product manager, right?
Yeah.
And this is often missing, Shanti, in many candidates. They're
Mhm.
either very siloed, or I will put myself, the most I can say, I'm not a software developer, never I was when I was 18, but I'm not that anymore. That was
Mhm.
only for 2, 3 years, but I've mostly been designer and then product and then design back to design. Uh, Someone who has touched three different pillars, someone who has worked in consulting as well as big corp, some like publicly traded company. How would you define the importance of a having that 360 or the 360 I would call it the 360 look from the engineering design product perspective, how much of that is really helping you to accelerate in your current role at Discover?
Yeah, as I learned and experienced each of these roles, what I understood is if you're sticking to only one lane or like lacking knowledge or even lacking willingness to improve knowledge on other areas, it becomes very difficult to create a product that is customer centric, or even like whatever the objective is, like to fulfill that objective from like a holistic perspective, it becomes very difficult. So there might be, if you're fully product oriented, you might be missing out on the technology gaps or things that are on that side. Or if you're only design centric, you'll fail to probably meet the objectives of the product or the commercial use, whatever is the goal, right? Um, Having fortunate enough to get that exposure in all those areas is my key strength, because if I put myself in a Venn diagram, like I really am that, like the triangle in between, where I'm able to speak product, I'm able to speak technology, I'm able to also understand and empathize with the customers. So that kind of gives me a lot of leverage in when I'm either writing requirements or giving requirements or solving problems. That lens helps a lot. It's also one of my core strengths, which helps me in a lot of jobs, because I'm able to almost adapt to any environment and talk the language that other people are talking. Yeah, so that's a core competency, I would say. And also it comes from my own curiosity. Like I'm a very curious person in general. So I keep like a breadth of knowledge, but depth is
Yeah.
like in one area. So really that focusing on that T structure. Um, uh, I would always say, like, be curious, learn, understand. No knowledge, I think, will ever go to waste. You just never know how it gets applied, when and where. So I find it always useful to know. Just be curious about, oh, how does this work? Tell me more about this. Why did you think about this? So just asking like basic questions, showing interest, trying to truly understand end to end um, is super key for success of any product.
So moving into a different question, because this is the
Mhm.
reason I asked you that is because now you have 360 overlook, right? And it's not that every candidate has that, but if not every, most candidates I've been seeing, I've been reading on Blind, I've been reading on Reddit, there always some software engineer who's like, hey, how do I transition to product management?
Mhm.
I know you transitioned from software engineering, a senior software engineer, to product ownership and discovered. I don't know what's the right posing of this question, but I will ask you this for sure. How do you make it happen? What lead the way that made it happen for you? And what are some learnings that you can be like, hey, Imran, you know what? These are two, three agnostic I guess, feedback suggestions for other folks who want to do it, but it may or
Mhm.
may not work because, not everything applies to everyone. But curious to know, how did you transition?
Yeah, I can share my experience, how I went about it, and I feel like majority can resonate with it. So I started off as a developer, right? But I was always curious in understanding the bigger picture. How does everything work end to end? What is the top level view? What is the bird's eye view? So focusing on the big picture. But with that, I was able to become a subject matter expert in the technology I was working on. I was able to take additional responsibilities that kind of expand outside of the technology world, but also slightly merging into like the product world. Like, for example, I used to take responsibility or take ownership of writing requirements for continuous improvement. Like, how can I improve this technology? So, flexing those product skills. So that was like slowly breaking barriers. That's how I started. Um, but eventually I hit a point where I was working almost like 20-25 hours a day, where in the morning I used to focus on participating in product discussions, problem solving, architecture, all of those stuff. And then in the night is when I would sit and actually do the coding for the deliverables that I was supposed to do. It was not sustainable, not realistic. So there came a time where I really had to make a decision on which path I'm going to take. Do I want to move out of day to day development, move into product, or stick to development and move into maybe more like an architecture side? an individual contributor type of role. And that's when I made the decision, like what is giving me more joy. And I eventually pivoted. And then when pivoting, and I tell this to many other folks who are also applying or hesitant to apply, is that focus on transferable skills. One of the transferable skills that I shared is like by writing requirements for technology. Product can write requirements from like a business perspective, from a use case scenario perspective, but say if there are some technology related, okay, what databases to use or how to improve this, what type of performance, things like that. Um, Pure product may not have enough knowledge or skills to write those. But if you want to flex, use your existing knowledge to flex into those skills and do the jobs that they would do, but from a technology side. So
Hmm.
that way you have some transferable skills you can show. So when I was talking in interviews, I was focusing on how I took responsibility for writing requirements for continuous improvement
Yeah.
items, like how I built a runway, how I built a technology backlog, how we did prioritization along with other business initiatives that we had. So that kind of helped me transition, and I started off as a product owner. I used to own consumer facing applications like your bill payments, joint ownership, wire transfer, those type of things. Then I quickly exhausted my knowledge there, and then I wanted more. I was greedy, I was hungry. And then open banking is fairly new in the industry, in US at least.
Hmm.
So that piqued my interest. I really loved the product. It's a back-end platform product, completely dealing with like APIs. So it was again an opportunity to learn and work on something new. Um, so yeah, so that's where I am today.
No, this is interesting. So basically, what you're saying is like focus on transferable skills, which are more tangible, like PRDs. So you have TRDs, right? And so,
Yeah.
like, how do you transfer those? Definitely other aspect of stakeholder management as well as trying to understand, like, diving into use cases when you're building tech. And so, another question I have is, since you also did design work, right? So you've been a designer as well. Um, how would you say those are transferable skills? And the reason I'm asking you is because there's some
Mhm.
designers like myself who went to product and they're
Mhm.
like, oh, it's great, but I'm gonna go back to design, right?
Mhm.
How would you say, like, I have my own take, but it's not about me, it's about you.
Mhm.
So, what would you say is really great to have a design as a pedigree when you
Mhm.
are a product leader?
Yeah, so my design knowledge, how I apply or how it became useful to me is it really helped me empathize and focus on the customer journey. Because you can design amazing technology with all of the latest resources, everything. And then you can also go fancy and go crazy with the product requirements,
Yeah,
right? But the sweet spot is understanding what's the MVP. What are we trying to achieve? What is it that will really benefit the customer? Like, in my account center, if I can't even find where to look for my third parties, will I be able to go and turn off acts? So things like that, like those are the design elements, like focusing on the customer journey. How is the customer starting? What is the end goal? Where are the pain points? Are there any design considerations that we need to take? So even though I'm not a designer, I'm not actively designing those products. It helps me go to meetings with some idea and better prepared to either prod in a certain direction or ask the right questions so that we have meaningful discussions with productive outcomes that kind of shape the product. Otherwise, if a designer is proposing, oh, but let's not put 10 things on a scrolling and things like that, like you wouldn't be able to understand the why. So I think having that design knowledge helps me understand the why and focusing on what's important, and minimizing the stuff we do. So the goal is always, how can I do 20% of the work to achieve 80% of the objective or the outcome? So yeah, so that's what design helps me.
No, no, this is the only reason I'm asking is because I think it's always good to hear different folks bringing different value of how they're transitioning skills. Now, a bit on a very different note, this is now going to be an open forum. So, do you feel, so I saw this post or this talk by, I forgot her name, but the CPO of Launch Darkly, Claire Vo. She also created Chat PRD, and she's like, product management is dead. And basically, that was a hot take with basically saying the roles will be one. So meaning a product manager would be expected to do one thing. So instead of having these three, the whole PDLC will change. You are working for a publicly traded company. It's a large company. This is the closest of one aspect I want to put in is what have you seen, specifically AI, doing or transforming or literally changing the team dynamics with design and engineering that you're like, oh my God, Imran, really, I can see that compression happening where there'll be fewer people and more acceleration in product features. Like, or maybe even something else. Maybe it could be like, hey, Imran, we're doing 10x faster or 5x faster. I don't know, whatever that X speed is, right? Uh, have you seen any transformation when it comes to AI within your corp or your team as well?
Mhm. So I will answer this in two parts. The first part is my personal opinion, and the second part is the reality of financial service industry. So my personal opinion is that if you have strong domain knowledge, no matter what area you're in, and you're always continuously focused on improving yourself, improving others around you, um, no matter what the job is called, I think there will always be a job. Um, so yeah, I think that's my personal opinion. I personally am not threatened by AI or think that it will take away people's jobs. If anything, I think it'll make us all more efficient and think about doing our jobs more effectively. Um, the second part, the reality is of financial service industry is that it's heavily regulated, highly secure. So adoption rate to like latest technology and all of that is a little bit slower than rest of the industry, like say a Microsoft or an Apple, how fast they would adopt versus someone in a bank. So the adoption rate is slower and a little bit later. It's more like a following trend, but not like an innovator in that space or somebody leading. That said, there is AI used in some aspects, like you have your voice systems and some bots are used where there's some testing needed, or like if there are repeated tasks and procedures that need to run for agents and things. So there are some places where it's used, but day to day, like my life, the work that I do, we don't use anything
So,
AI yet.
so
And
no,
we're
go
yeah.
ahead, go ahead.
No, I'm saying like even the tools like your chat GPT or all those things which are very easily and commonly available for most of the peers working in Apple or Microsoft, those are also not allowed or available
No,
for us. So yeah, because of
no,
all the regulations and the security.
I that's actually very good to hear that because my second thing is, do you think it's overhyped? I and I will tell you why am I saying this. I'll give you my hot take and then I want to get your opinion. What do you think?
Mhm.
My opinion is the AI space, specifically in product management, is getting too much overhyped. Um, and that's only because, with crypto and everything else, it's there. The real use case for any software engineer and designer is to basically increasing their deliverables that may also increase productivity. As for product managers, they should be not investing in time in writing a document, just filling the key things, right? There's someone like yourself. Hey, these are 10 use cases. This is what I know. Done. Now start writing me a document, which I could just quick. So basically, you have a AI PM, legitly AI PM.
Mm.
It's overhyped. And companies such as yourself, and which are plenty of them out there, are gonna take their sweet time in adoption to make sure it's, regulated in terms of security, enterprise, all that stuff that they really need from GPT or other things which are out there. Hence, going to my point, it's overhyped right now. And is that what you think is happening? This was not my hot take, but kind of a hot take that is overhyped for no reason.
Yeah, I think AI is the new buzzword these days everywhere. Like everybody wants to use AI, and there are teams in every company that are trying to see what backlog we can create for AI or where we can use AI and things. So that noise is definitely there everywhere. But I think it takes a minute to figure out like how people can really use AI for individual functions, like within their org or within their department. What purpose does it serve? Ultimately, whatever we do, product or anything, it is to serve some purpose, right? So,
Mhm.
what purpose will AI serve for you? Is it applicable or not? Like that feasibility test needs to be done. Um, and will there ever be an AI PM that will just replace all the PMs? Technically, its answer is yes. Right? I mean, sure,
Oh,
you
really?
can. I mean, technically, anything can happen. You can say, okay, fine,
Yeah.
AI can write requirements and stuff, but what output are you expecting? What quality are you expecting? Um, it is definitely dangerous to not have any validation or verification on the output that is being produced and then automatically gets built. Um, does the AI today have enough knowledge to do all that seamlessly and optimally? I don't think so. Will we get there in the next 5 years? Probably not. And to even make that system, I think a lot of training is required. Like you have to supply a lot of knowledge, a lot of test data to really validate and find out whether it can get the job done to a level where an actual person can think and write about a product.
Like I agree to what you're saying, but I also feel like is there are two kinds of AI. AI PM where they're like PMs like you diving deep into building AI. And then there's, I think, every PM will have an AI PM. So, where you have, I don't know if you have, but there are some associate PMs, right? I
Mhm,
think those jobs are destined to eliminate in some case. You will either have a product manager, there's no need of an associate PM precisely. And so all that lower level work will transfer to an AI agent in a case. So where that
mhm,
PM is investing more time in
mhm,
customers, user discovery, as you mentioned, validating. I feel that's the future. And that will like we're already seeing, I don't know if you're seeing this, but we're already seeing junior developers roles eliminated. So
mhm,
now when you are a software engineer, a new grad, you're expected to know some
mhm,
things and you're like, geez. Like I know a few new grads and they're looking for jobs and they're like, I didn't know I need
mhm.
to know this. I'm like, "Mm, you have to.
Yeah.
Like there's no way. Are you seeing any of that trend within your company or people around you or peers?
Not not in our company at least. Like I said, like we have to adopt slowly. We
Yeah.
can't just jump on it. So I think like personally for me too, I'm in that observation phase.
Hmm.
I just don't know or have gathered sufficient information that tells me, okay, this industry will get impacted or this area will get impacted. Like I don't have enough information or specific knowledge to make that determination yet. So I'm still in that observe how things are going, what trends people are following kind of phase. Um, But I do see what you're saying. Like, I think eventually everyone will have to have that added skill on their resumes is even if your jobs are not getting replaced, you at least need to know how to use new technology, what to do with it, how to make things work. And I think that is true for everything. Like a couple of years ago, AWS became a common skill, right? Like most people, if you're in technology, you need that on your resume,
Yep.
or data science. Things. So yeah, so it might become an added skill, which is a good thing. It's always good to learn something new and improve your portfolio or profile. Yeah.
Sorry for coughing. I know I mute myself. I'm just coughing. I don't know why. Um, on different note, some things I want to know that will help other people. You have like so if I see your career, so I have your LinkedIn open, if in case you were wondering what am I looking at, and I see that you have been successfully being able to promote yourself in your career, right? You are I don't, would you categorize yourself fairly, not fairly new, but like someone who got back recently to product management? Would that be a fair categorization, or would you say
Yeah, in the
differently?
last 5 years, I would say.
So that's amazing. So that's congratulations on how you progressed in your career. How did you progress in your career? That's the question. What steps did you take to self-improve your PM skills, to stand out with your stakeholders that allowed you to accelerate where you are today as a, senior manager?
Mhm.
Can you share some insights over there?
Yeah, a lot of it was mindset shift and also figuring out the formula, I guess. So the first 5 years of my career, I was in technology, and the work that I was inputting versus the growth I expected um, were not proportional, according to me. I felt it was very slow. So in my mind, I want to be able to grow into the next role um, every 2 years. And initially, I didn't see that growth happen. It was like 3 years or 4 years. And then I found out that more than the technical skills and your performance, because I was not able to understand how I'm always exceeding expectations on performance, but never getting that promotion. And then I found out two things. One is you have to literally ask for it. Um, I was always of the impression, and that maybe it's cultural too, like growing up, you're not used to, like, if you grew up in India or anywhere on the East Side, you're not used to promoting yourself. You're not used to asking for things. You expect that
So true.
there's almost a culture of reverence. Like you expect to do the job, you expect to be good, and then
Yeah.
people who are above you are going to give you the reward or like
Yeah.
reward for your performance or whatever, right? So it was also a cultural thing for me to learn and understand, okay, that's not how it works. um, you have to be able to put yourself in positions, in rooms where people can see, and you're able to talk about your work that you did, the results that you achieved. That was one thing. And the second thing was, um, what you consider wins are probably not necessarily wins for your leadership.
Hmm.
So then I started focusing more and more on what are the wins for my organization? What are the wins for my leaders? What are they trying to achieve next 6 months, next year? And then I started to help solve those problems or like get them closer to those objectives, like fulfill those overall objectives for the department, for the team, for the company. That also helped me move along faster. Um, yeah, so, and if I still saw that there's not growth, and then it's probably not you, it's probably where you are. Either that work stream doesn't have opportunities to help you grow further. Like, there may be some areas where there's not as many. So it's always important to ask in your interviews as well about growth opportunities, like asking about how others get promoted in your
Hmm.
team, or how to grow to the next step, like what opportunities there are. That will kind of also help you understand, because sometimes it's not your fault, it's not their fault, there's just no opportunity, so they can't
Yeah.
create new jobs for you. um, so when you understand that, it at least doesn't make you bitter. It just creates a new path for you. You can always search internally or externally, apply, and move on to new roles. Yeah, I think these three things
Th-
what made me move faster.
No, this is actually pretty good, and I will double click or validate that it was very hard for me to get even promoted. And so what worked for me was to A, put myself in position and roles where I'm helping the leadership achieve their task, not what I'm supposed to do. And I think what happens, Shanti, is most of the time it translates very badly when they say, oh, you need to overperform your task. What that overperforming means when you are AIC. How do you become a manager? And so I will agree there was part of me which thought if I do good work, I get rewarded. And that's very culturally, right? So I come from Pakistan, it's like
Yeah.
100% same culture. There's not actually much difference. And it's a big mind shift to be in that position that I want to help you to accelerate. And how do I do that? And so I totally agree with what you're saying. It does changes your career trajectory, and definitely our cultural values do mess up a little bit in some cases, I'll be honest. Well, that's my take one. But I know we're getting on the time a little bit, so I always ask all my guests, Shanti. I know you're probably busy, so I just want to make sure I don't take much of your time. But one thing I really want to ask is, looking at your career, you really shared some really good advice on point for how to shift into product management, from engineering to design to product manager, as well as you're someone who, even in the last 5 years, have been accelerating in your current role. That's amazing. And so kudos to you. Any big takeaway that you can really help? Because, and what I want from your takeaway is the job market right now sucks. There are around, I think, 300,000 plus people unemployed in the tech sector.
Mhm,
I think yesterday or today, Nissan announced they're laying off. That's a different story, but that's not tech, but they are laying off as well. Of course, they have PMs as well.
mhm,
And so layoff is never ending. Hopefully now it ends. And so what advice, what suggestion, what is that something you will say that Imran, people, regardless of how senior, how junior, how mid-senior level you are, please do these one or two or three or these things to accelerate yourself.
Yeah. I personally operate on this principle that don't let fear stop you. If I'm afraid of something, I actually make it a point, give myself a task to do it. In any way. So, and also like not limiting ourselves with things that are outside of our control. There are layoffs in the industry, or just outside the job market is poor. All of those are not in my control. I can't control those. So, getting out of result oriented mode and actually focusing on doing the things that you do with, how can I improve? Today I did it this way. Can I improve it even slightly, like 1% tomorrow? Like focusing on doing your job well and doing it better consistently every day, I think will create opportunities. It may not be today, it may not be tomorrow, but it will be. And the thing is, it gives the power back to you. Like it gives you the power to create your own opportunities. You're not getting this job, fine, just apply for another job. You're not getting promoted here, look for another opportunity. Because when you feel like you have the control to do anything, you will actually be able to take meaningful actions, and that lead you towards tangible outcomes. But if you're limiting yourself, stopping yourself, oh, job market is poor, so I won't even apply, or I'm not a good candidate, I don't have enough qualifications for that role, so I won't even apply. So you're already cutting off your possibilities out of the limited possibilities. So yeah, I think that's how I operate. And that changed a lot. You will see it on my LinkedIn in the past 5 years. So
No, no, this is super cool because um I have this startup mindset, try to make a no into a yes, and that's been throughout my over the last, I think, 7, 8 or 9 years. I don't even, but it's been a long while. And I do agree with you. Sometimes when you look at an opportunity and you're like, no, I'm like, make it, fake it. Sorry, I will be honest, but like do what you need to do to make it
Mhm.
happen to get the certificate. So I really love that advice what you have. And I think hearing from someone like yourself who's been there, done that, going to do wonders ahead as well. Thank you, Shanti, for joining my podcast. I was very glad to have you. And at least I can have an evidence for people to know that friendships last. You don't have to say hi, hello that much, but as long as you're there for each other, you understand um, stuff happens. It's always good to have that. Thank you once again for giving
No,
me your
thank you
valuable
so
time.
much. Pleasure is all mine. It was really good catching up. Thank you. Yeah.